Hey guys, welcome back to Intro to HTML5 Game Development. In part 1 of this series, I showed you how to create a basic HTML5 project. This includes an HTML file, which holds our canvas element, and a JavaScript file. In this JavaScript file, we create a variable called context that gets access to this canvas. And in the JavaScript file, we can use this context variable to draw things. In this video, I'm going to show you all the cool things you can draw using the canvas. So let's just get started. The first thing we learned in part 1 is how to draw a rectangle. So we're just going to do that again. So again, to create a rectangle, first you have to tell the computer what color you want the rectangle to be. We do that by modifying the fill style. So to do that, write ctx for context dot fill style and set it equal to a color in quotes. So I'll set it equal to yellow. Then on the next line, I'm going to actually draw the rectangle. So to do that, I do ctx dot fill rect. So first I have to pick the origin of the rectangle, where it starts drawing. So in the canvas, the top left corner is 0, 0. So when you draw something, it always starts in the top left. So if I pick 0, 0, it's going to start in the top left-hand corner. I then have to define the width and height of my rectangle. So I want this to be a small square, so I'm going to pick 50, 50, semicolon. So to run this program, you have to go back to your index file and hit the play button. Another way to do that is to go into your file system and just double-click the index file, and it'll open on your computer. And as you see, we've drawn a yellow box. Okay, so that's how to fill a rectangle. But sometimes we don't want to fill in the rectangle. We only want to draw the outline of a rectangle. So there's a different function to draw the outline of a rectangle. So in our JavaScript file, let's skip a couple lines. So the first thing we need to do is tell the computer what color the outline of our rectangle should be. To do that, instead of setting fill style, we have to set stroke style. So type ctx.stroke style. And let's set that equal to pink and semicolon at the end. The next thing we need to do is tell the computer how wide this line should be. So to do that, we need to set the line width of the canvas. So type ctx.line width, capital W, and let's set that equal to 5, semicolon. So that means this line should be 5 pixels wide, and it should be the color pink. To actually draw the rectangle, instead of using the fill rect function, we have to use the stroke rect function. So type ctx.stroke rect, and in parentheses, it works basically the same as the fill rect function. So we need to tell the computer where the rectangle should start. So I'm going to start mine at 100, 100, which is towards the top left of the screen. And I'll also make it 50 by 50 in size, semicolon. Make sure to save your file and go back to your open project and just hit refresh. And as you see, now it's drawn the outline of a rectangle. If we wanted to make it thicker, we would just have to change the line width. So I'll make it 10 and refresh. And now we have a thicker rectangle. You can also change the color. I can change mine to black, for example, and it'll also update. Okay, those are the two ways to draw a rectangle onto your canvas. Now we're going to learn how to draw a simple line on your canvas. So to start drawing a line, we first have to begin a path. We do that by calling the begin path function. So type ctx.beginPath, and then parentheses and a semicolon. This is going to start our line. But first we need to tell the computer where the line is starting on the screen. We do that by calling the move_to function. So type ctx.move_to, and then in parentheses we need to tell the computer where the line is starting. So I'm going to start mine at 200, 200, and then semicolon. This is going to be 200 pixels from the left side and 200 pixels down from the top side. That's where this line is starting. So now we need to tell the computer where the line is going to end. We do that by calling the line_to function. So type ctx.line_to. So I want my line to be a straight up and down line. So I don't want it changing in the x direction. So I'm going to keep the line at 200. but I want it to go down 100 pixels. So from 200 down 100 pixels would end up at 300 semicolon. Okay, so that creates a line, but it still hasn't drawn the line yet. To actually draw the line, we have to call the stroke function. So type ctx.stroke and then parentheses semicolon, and that will execute all the lines we've drawn in our path. So now let's check out the program and hit refresh. And so as you see, we've drawn a simple line that goes up and down. If I wanted to change some of the settings for this line, I could do that before I start the path. So for example, I'm going to change the line width to 5 semicolon, and I'm going to change the color by changing the stroke style. I'm going to set it equal to whites and semicolon. And so we should have a smaller white line, which we do. Okay, this line doesn't seem very impressive, but this is actually a pretty powerful tool for creating your own custom shapes. So I'm going to change this line into a triangle by adding a few more pieces to the line. So I'm going to go back to my JavaScript, and after the line2 function, I'm going to add another line2 function. So we are at 200, 300 now. I want this line to go straight to the right. So it's going to change 100 pixels in the X direction. So it started at 200, it'll end up at 300. And I don't want it changing in the Y direction because it's not going to go up or down. So I'm going to add 300 here and semicolon. So the line will start 200, 200. It'll go down to 200, 300. And then it'll go to the right 300 to 300. And if I hit refresh, so now we've drawn the line that ends at 300, 300 here. So I want to complete my triangle by going back to the top left. So I know what that position is because it's the position I started at. So let's go ahead and add a final line2 function. And it's going to end where we started at 200, 200. So 200, 200 and semicolon at the end. And we should have a triangle. And we do. Okay, at this point we have an outline of a triangle which we made using the path, which is made up of 3 different lines. It's really easy to fill in this triangle, so let's do that right now. To fill in the triangle with the color, all we have to do is call the fill function. So type ctx.fill, parentheses semicolon, save it and hit refresh, and it fills the triangle in with a black color. It's kind of hard to tell, but because we're filling in the triangle after we've drawn the outline, it kind of covers up part of the outline. So let's switch the order of this. We want to call the fill function before the stroke function. So it will fill in our triangle and then it'll draw the outline. It'll look much cleaner that way. So hit save and let's refresh. And so as you see, the outline now is on top of the fill, which makes for a really neat looking shape. Okay, so now you know how to create your own custom shapes using lines and a path. Now I'm going to teach you how to use the path to create your own circle. So let's go back to the JavaScript. So to create a circle, we still use a path. So we want to first call the begin path method again. So type ctx.beginPath, parentheses, semicolon. So this tells our computer, okay, here comes a new path. It's totally separate from the lines we've drawn in the past. If we didn't call this, the circle we create would be connected in a weird way to these lines. So the next function we need to call is the arc function. This is the function that actually creates the circle. So type ctx.arc. Okay, so the first bit of info we need to put in these parentheses is where is the center of the circle. So I'm going to create this circle at 400, 100. That means 400 pixels from the left side of the screen and 100 pixels down from the top side of the screen. The next info it takes is the radius of the circle. That's how wide it is from the center. So I'm going to give my circle a radius of 50. The next bit of info is more complicated. I'm not going to go into it in this video. So next type 0, comma, and then I want you to write 2 times math with a capital M dot pi in capital, and then at the end semicolon. So what this means is basically how much of the circle are we creating. So you'd only want to modify this data if you want to create like half a circle or a quarter of a circle or something like that. So this will take it 360 degrees to make a full circle. Okay, so next we need to either call stroke or fill to create the circle. We'd call stroke if we wanted the circle to be just an outline, and we'd call fill if we want it to be the actual shape. So I'm going to go ahead and create the actual shape first using the fill function. So ctx.fill, parentheses, semicolon, save your file, and let's make sure we did this right. And we did. We've created a circle, which is at 400 and 100 on your screen. It's 50 pixels in radius, and it goes in full 360 degrees. But it's kind of boring right now, so I'm gonna change the color before we do anything else. So before the begin path, I'm gonna change the fill style. I'm gonna change it to green, and that will change the color of the circle. Now let's also give it an outline. So I'm going to set the stroke style, which will be the color of the outline. I'm going to set it equal to blue, semicolon. And we can also change the length, the width of the line. So I want to make this a really thick outline. So I'm going to change the line width to 10, and that's 10 pixels wide. And then after the fill, we're going to call the stroke function, and that will actually draw the outline of the circle. So save it and hit refresh, and now it's drawn the outline of the circle for us. Okay, so now you know how to draw all the basic shapes on the canvas, and now you can make some really cool stuff. Before we finish this video, I want to show you how to draw text on the screen. So to do that, let's skip a couple lines in our program, and we need to first define the font of our text. To do that, type ctx.font and set it equal to quotation marks. So the first thing in these quotation marks has to be the size of the text. So I'm going to make mine 30 px. So you can change the number as long as you have px right after the number, exactly like I've written. And then hit space. And then we need to define what the font's actually going to be. So I'm going to make mine Arial for now. And then semicolon at the end. So to actually draw text on the screen, we use the fill text function. So type ctx.fillText, parentheses, and then quotation marks. What goes in these quotation marks are the actual words we want to output on the screen. So I'm just going to say hello world, exclamation mark. Then put a comma after the quotation marks. Now we need to define where on the screen this text is going to go. So I'm going to make mine start at 400, 400, and then a semicolon afterwards. So let's hit refresh. And as you see, we've drawn text on the screen at 400 by 400. So now you have all of the tools to make some cool drawings, which I would really recommend you do as practice. Maybe make like a sunset or a landscape or a person using lines and circles and your own shapes. And then move on to part 3, where we're going to be actually drawing sprites and pixel art onto the screen, which is the start of actually making your own game. So I hope to see you there.